My parents made me marry a poor nobody. Mom said it's where you belong. I'm Juniper. I'm 28. 6 months ago, my parents forced me to marry a nobody named Knox just to humble me. At my wedding dress fitting, my mother Avalon sneered. After what? You did. This is where you belong. But what she never guessed, the nobody she picked to punish me, was secretly richer than our entire family. Growing up as Juniper Callahan meant piano lessons at 5, etiquette at 7, and fake smiles by 10. My mother was Boston's queen bee. Perfect hair, perfect pearls, perfect poison behind every compliment. When I begged my dad, Beckett, to help fund my boutique, he laughed. We're real estate mogul, not shopkeepers. Consider it an expensive lesson, sweetheart. For 3 months, my store, Juniper, sparkled and my business partner vanished with $300,000. Newspapers called me reckless. My parents called me a disgrace. They kicked me out of my condo, took my car, froze my cards, said I needed to learn humility. Then one night, they sat me down. You'll marry Knox Parker. He's nothing special, but he'll tolerate you. Knox showed up in a cheap suit and a rusty Civic. He said, this won't be romantic, it'll be functional. I hated him. I hated the tiny apartment my mother picked out for us. I hated fetching coffee at my father's company while people whispered, poor Juniper. But something didn't add up. Knox worked long hours for a junior consultant. He locked his home office. He took late calls in a voice that didn't match his cheap suits. One night, curiosity won. I opened his office door and froze. Bloomberg terminals, 3 massive monitors, charts, stock tickers, deals worth millions. Knox turned calm as ever. Guess you found out. Turns out my nobody husband was Knox Parker. Yes, the reclusive billionaire behind Aurora Investments worth over $4 billion. Why the fake life? I demanded. He said, because real love can't see me through dollar signs and because your parents needed humbling more than you did. Then he showed me the twist that broke me. My mother, Avalon, had paid my ex-partner to ruin me. She staged my boutique's collapse to force me back under her thumb. Knox knew he'd married me to get proof. And tonight, at my parents' anniversary gala, I grabbed the mic, red dress blazing Knox by my side. I told Boston's high society how my own mother destroyed my dream, how my father called me a failure, and how the nobody they forced on me turned out to be the man who saved me. Knox squeezed my hand as the room fell silent. I looked right at my mother's frozen smile and said, this is where I belong now, beside a man you'll never. Growing up as Juniper Callahan, life was a tightly controlled performance. From piano lessons at 5 to etiquette classes at 7, and by 10, I had mastered the art of perfect smiles that masked the growing emptiness inside. My mother, Avalon, was Boston's queen bee, flawless hair, elegant pearls, and a sharp tongue behind every thinly veiled compliment. She wielded her social status like a weapon, always ready to cut down anyone who didn't fit her ideal. When I poured my heart into building my boutique, Juniper, I believed it was my chance to carve out my own place in the world. But when I asked my father, Beckett, for funding, he laughed derisively. We're real estate moguls, not shopkeepers, he said. Consider it an expensive lesson, sweetheart. For 3 months, my boutique sparkled with promise, until my business partner vanished along with $300,000 in capital. The media called me reckless. My parents called me a disgrace. They stripped me of my condo, my car, and frozen my credit cards, insisting I needed to learn humility. Then came the ultimatum. You will marry Knox Parker, they declared. He's nothing special, but he'll tolerate you. Knox arrived for the wedding looking like an afterthought. Cheap suit, rusty Civic, and a promise that this won't be romantic, but functional. I hated him. I hated the cramped apartment Mom picked for us. I hated fetching coffee at my father's firm as whispers followed me. Poor Juniper. Yet something about Knox felt off. Though ostensibly a junior consultant working long hours, he guarded his home office zealously and took late calls in a voice too confident for his cheap suits. One night, curiosity overpowered me. I opened his office door and froze. Bloomberg terminals blinked in the dim light. 3 massive monitors streamed stock charts, tickers, and multi-million-dollar deals. Knox turned, calm as ever. Guess you found out. He revealed himself as Knox. Parker, the reclusive billionaire behind Aurora Investments, valued at over $4 billion. Why the charade? I demanded. Because real love can't see me through dollar signs, he replied, and because your parents needed humbling more than you did. Then came the cruelest twist. My mother, Avalon, had orchestrated my downfall. She paid my business partner to sabotage me, crushing my boutique to force me back under her control. Knox had married me not just for love, but to collect proof of her schemes. On the night of my parents' anniversary gala, I stepped onto the stage, radiant in red, with Knox at my side, and took the microphone. I told Boston's high society the truth. How my mother destroyed my dreams, how my father branded me a failure, and how the nobody they forced on me was actually the man who saved me. Knox squeezed my hand as the B. Room fell silent. I locked eyes with my mother's frozen, shocked smile and declared, "This is where I belong now, beside a man you'll never break." The room held its breath. For the first time, I wasn't playing a part. I was claiming my story. I was invited to dinner with my wife's dad, the CEO, only to be told I was being replaced by his 18-year-old son after building the company from scratch. "He's young and smart, and the company's next CEO," he said. Everyone agreed. I smiled and replied completely understand. They had no idea that Chapter 1, the invitation. The restaurant was elite, velvet-draped, candle-lit, and humming with whispered power plays. I wore my best navy blue suit, the same one I'd worn 10 years ago at the groundbreaking ceremony of the very company we were celebrating tonight, a company that didn't exist before I'd poured my blood, sweat, and every hour of my 20s into it. My wife, Clarissa, sat beside me, unusually radiant tonight. Her father, Charles Eddington, CEO of Eddington Innovations, sat across from me, flanked by his teenage son, Lucas, 18, barely shaving. They had just served the wine when Charles cleared his throat and smiled. "You've done great work, Mark," he began, patting my hand like a grandfather handing out participation trophies. "But it's time for new blood." I paused mid-sip. He continued, voice dripping with self-importance. "Lucas is sharp, ambitious, and understands modern tech in a way. Well, in a way, you just don't. He'll be announced as the new CEO next quarter." Clarissa didn't meet my eyes. Lucas smirked like he'd just beaten his dad at chess. The rest of the board members nodded like drones, pretending this wasn't absurd. After all, I was the one who built this company from zero. But I smiled calmly, coolly. I folded my napkin and said, "Completely understand." And I meant it because they had no idea what I had already done behind the scenes. Chapter 2. I was never just an employee. The moment I stepped into my car after that dinner, I didn't curse. I didn't cry. I didn't even call my lawyer because I didn't need to. 10 years ago, Charles Eddington had money, but no ideas, no innovation, no digital expertise. That's where I came in. Fresh out of grad school with a triple major and a rejected startup that almost worked. I had built Eddington Innovations from the first algorithm line to its current billion-dollar valuation. I handled the patents, the branding, the infrastructure. I trained every senior engineer. I handpicked the CTO. I even coded the security architecture myself. But most importantly, I structured the company in a way Charles never fully understood. See, while he was out golfing and networking, I was drafting joint intellectual property agreements, custom software licenses, and silent stock clauses, all protected under my name through my holding company. Because legally, I owned 51% of all the technology that powered Eddington Innovations. I had offered him the opportunity to merge our rights into the company 5 years ago if he paid me fair value. He declined. "I'm family now," he'd said. "Let's not complicate things with contracts." So I didn't. I let him believe he held all the power until now. Now, they wanted to oust me, replace me with an 18-year-old TikTok investor who had never written a single line of code, who still called ChatGPT magic. They had no idea what Wednesday was going to bring because at 9 a.m. that day, I was going to lock them out of their own empire. Chapter 3. Wednesday, 9 a.m., access denied. At precisely 8:59 a.m., I sat in my home office with my laptop open, a hot mug of coffee beside me, and a smirk that hadn't left my face since the dinner. I wasn't nervous. The boardroom would already be filling with executives, junior engineers, and of course, Charles's teenage son, dressed like he was headed to a yacht party rather than an executive meeting. They were about to launch a new software update. My software built on a proprietary framework that had never been formally transferred to the company. Why? Because I'd anticipated something like this years ago. At 9 a.m. sharp, I clicked a button on my secure backend server dashboard labeled Execute Transfer Lockdown. One by one, their systems began shutting down. The touchscreen monitors in the conference room went black. Key dashboards began returning error messages. CRM databases became inaccessible. The AI models they were boasting about, frozen, untrainable, deactivated, and then came the alerts. Error 403 core licensing access revoked. Product backend authorization failed. API key no longer valid. I leaned back in my chair as panic exploded across their Slack channels, emails, and phones. And then at 9:03 a.m., I received the first call from Charles himself. I let it ring. Then came the text. Charles, Mark, what's going on? Charles, we can't access anything. Charles, tell me this is a mistake. Charles, we have an investor call in 20 minutes. And finally one from my now ex-wife. What the hell are you doing? You're ruining everything. Fix it. I sipped my coffee, then replied, It's not mine anymore. Remember? Chapter 4. The Empire. Crumbles back in the boardroom. Chaos reigned. Charles was drenched in sweat, jabbing at his tablet while barking into his phone. Get Mark on the line now. But I was already 10 steps ahead. My number was disconnected, and the emails bounced. Across from him, his teenage son, the future CEO, looked pale, scrolling helplessly through the dead system. Dad, is this like a glitch or something? No, muttered Charles. This is war. At 9:10 a.m., a notice appeared across all monitors still connected to the local internet. This system, its back-end code, and its proprietary framework are the legal property of Mark Wittman, protected under license agreement, Wonder 28. You fired the owner. Good luck. Silence. And then the screaming started. They tried calling in it. Didn't work. They called in their legal team. Too late. See, I'd already forwarded the license agreement and patents to their investors the night before, with timestamps proving I was never a formal employee, only a contracted CTO who retained ownership of the original framework. All development afterward had been licensed, not transferred. By 10:00 a.m., the company's top investor, also, my former mentor, sent a message directly to Charles in the conference room. Did you really just fire the only person holding your tech together? We're pulling funding immediately. At 11:30 a.m., my wife showed up at my apartment, pounding on the door. Mark, open up, please. I didn't. She screamed through the door. You're ruining your legacy. You're acting like a child. I calmly replied, You said I wasn't worth your time. Turns out I'm worth the entire company. Chapter 5. When the headlines hit by noon, the company's social media pages were flooded, not by me, but by former employees, partners, clients, and competitors, all sharing screenshots of the system shutdown, the legal licensing documents I'd released, and the investors' mass pullouts. A trending hashtag started on X, formerly Twitter. # fired the founder. Someone even made a meme of Charles shaking hands with his 18-year-old son, captioned, Nepotism speedrun. Day 1, inherited empire. Day 2, empire burned down. The press was relentless. Tech Titanadone CTO ignited legal firestorm. CEO's ego move backfires. Company in meltdown after secret license clause triggers lockout. My favorite. The sun rose, the empire sank. 2 p.m. My wife's father calls me. Mark, listen. This has gone far enough. We can negotiate. Let's fix this. You were family, I replied calmly. That ended at dinner. And for the record, I didn't start this. You did when you treated me like I was disposable. Then I added, Oh, and your son just posted a TikTok from the office saying he's so over this and wants to go stream Fortnite full-time. Investors saw it. Click, 300 p.m. My wife shows up again. This time she wasn't screaming. She was crying. Mark, I'm sorry. I panicked. I didn't know they were planning this. I didn't mean to betray you. I stared at her for a long moment before replying. You didn't stand up for me when it counted. You laughed. You sat there with them and smiled. Now you're only here because your golden nest is burning. Tears streamed down her face. I made a mistake. Please, can we start over? I stepped back into the apartment and grabbed a folder from my desk. Here's the mistake, I said, handing it over. Signed divorce papers, all assets removed. Apartment lease in my name only. She collapsed to the floor in shock. Chapter 6. The final move. 2 days after the firestorm began, the board voted unanimously to remove Charles as CEO. Their once prized family-run empire was hemorrhaging trust and money. In a leaked boardroom audio, one investor bluntly said, "We let a teenager run the helm, and he drove it straight into an iceberg." The company stock hit rock bottom, lawsuits followed, clients pulled out of contracts. But as for me, I was already miles away. 3 months later, Monaco. I sipped espresso at a balcony overlooking the bay. Marina. The sun dipped into the water as a sleek yacht bearing my new company's name, Trueforge Systems, pulled into port. This time, I was the sole owner. I'd built a new firm quietly with a few loyal engineers, people who actually respected my leadership. We weren't chasing headlines. We were delivering value, innovation, and transparency, and investors. The same ones who fled my ex-father-in-law's company came knocking on my door, this time offering equity on my terms. Epilogue. A message from her. Last week, my ex-wife sent an email. I'm sorry. I miss us. I was stupid. Can we meet? I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to her father, who, according to news reports, was living in a much smaller house these days and battling 3 lawsuits. Final words. You don't always need to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is silence followed by success. Never underestimate the person you call too expensive. You might just be signing your company's death certificate. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell us what you think about this story in the comments below.